just Elon Spec, but the first time a brand-sponsored film has been played at the Tribeca X Festival. I've got 15 minutes and quite a panel. I've already been given some feedback on my questions. Just a quick note, Jane Fonda was not happy with the question I was going to ask her. I've been told that 1,000 times. I'm giving you a new question. All right, good. She's looking at me skeptically. But we're going to start, Delphine, with you, co-producer of this amazing film, which is, so it's brand storytelling, which is usually outside of advertising, but this one is brand storytelling about advertising, although it's not really about advertising. There's a line, there's an agency, McCann, there's a brand, L'Oreal Paris, but really there's an amazing woman at the heart of the story. So why does L'Oreal Paris want to tell the backstory of the woman who came up with this amazing, probably the most famous line in advertising? What's in it for you?
So there is, first there is a reason, a business reason, is that everyone has been listening to Morissette, Je le vaux bien, Porque tu le vales, but it's always into an advertising, so it's, we lost the deep meaning of the Morissette.
It's a line, it's an end.
Yeah, it's become like, a tagline, and but in fact it's a story. It's the story of a woman with a stepdaughter, and we wanted to tell the authenticity of this story. And the other reason is that not a single country in the world has yet achieved parity. So I think that the women need to be reminded that they are worth it. And that's the reason why. And that's the reason why we decided to re-put on the table the Morissette story, because in many countries we are not worth what we should.
The idea is way bigger than a line.
Of course, it's a feminist manifesto for sure,
yes.
And I think it's more interesting for the consumer to listen to that than any kind of product advertising. Even if I love the product, it's not. I think it's much deeper than that.
That's amazing. Delphine runs a €7 billion brand, the biggest beauty brand in the world, growing at double digits, and you just said you'd rather see that film than a product ad. I'm going to hold you to that. The next of everything. So I'm going to talk to Jane.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, how does it say to, because I'm worth it on camera, but you said you've been asked by every boring reporter in the world that question. And I'm not going to ask it. I'm going to ask you the question instead, which is, this is an amazing story. I was watching you watch the story. There, she had such bravery to take on all the establishments, which clearly wanted to do a version of that ad that was not the one she had in mind. Do you relate to that? Was that a part of the story that you enjoyed?
Well, what really struck me, but it was not when I saw the film, but I read her obituary, that she had suggested this tagline to McCann, and they interpreted it as the guy's walking along with a girl, and he says she's willing to spend all kinds of money for the most expensive hair conditioner because she's worth it, which is not at all the same thing as having her say, I'm worth it, goddammit, Okay, and it tanked. They did a polling, right?
Yes.
And the one with the guy talking tanked. And people really responded to the woman saying, I'll spend it because I'm worth it. And I love that. It meant something new to me when I saw it from that. I'm an ambassador for L'Oreal, and so I get asked all the time, what does saying, because I'm worth it, mean to you? I think it's a great tagline. I just ran out of answers.
When you said because I'm worth it, there was a fight in it, right? It's not often that lines in advertising have a fight in it.
It's agency. It expresses a woman's agency.
And that's why it's won 50 years and we're still talking about it, not because because that agency is still important to fight for and important to celebrate.
Well, of course, we need it. We desperately need it. I hope that one day we will not need to say I'm worth it or you're worth it to the woman. Then we will change the tagline. But I'm afraid it's not for tomorrow. For
50 more years from now.
Yeah, I think we need to repeat it a bit.
So I'm going to...
I also have to say, I'm very moved, having had a lot of stepchildren in my life, through a number of marriages. I was very moved that the woman who came up with this tagline was also a wonderful stepmother. I found that really,
Agree.
yeah.
It is a deep point, and I think we have Alison.
Where are you?
Alison and because McCann's tagline for the last 120 years has been "Truth well told." I will tell the truth, which is that Elon was quite mad at McCann, as Alison reminded me, because in the 70s and later, she didn't get the recognition she deserved. She had to fight to do something so brave that gave the world this enduring idea that has lasted and helped transform a category, and yet she was still treated like just another great voice in the room, and ultimately ended up being an antiques collector in art. But we've remedied that. We'll get to that, Shane. We get to the remedy that we've got in the industry for that nonsense. But I'm going to go to Ben. So Ben, Proudfoot. I'm so proud. Your name is like perfect. You're so proud to have the stage with you.
My feet are
and you have feet. I'm proud, and you have feet. So it all works together. You made this amazing film, this work of art, which honors Elon's artistry in its making, in its craft. So thank you for that. You had to do all kinds of things to get this story made. You discovered that Elon was living in the Dakota, in the middle of Manhattan,
Yes.
and that she was dying of cancer. You knew you didn't have a lot of time to capture her story, and she probably wasn't in the mood to tell us, one, because she, as she says, fuck advertising, and two, she's dying. So how did you get her to open up? How did you get the Dakota to open up?
Well, I still don't know if the Dakota knows about this movie, to be totally honest. Well, I remember finally getting in touch with Elon on the phone. And by the way, I'm honored to be part of this panel. Yeah, it's incredible to be up here with all of you, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to make this film with my team. But I called Elon, and she immediately said, absolutely no way, I'm not interested, and told me a litany of things that she didn't like about her, that she had a negative experience in the 1980s with McCann or with L'Oreal, etc. But she kept talking to me, and she kept telling me parts of the story that she felt hadn't been told properly. And she kept telling me that she would like the opportunity, actually, to tell it from her perspective. And I told her that that's what I was interested in doing. And then when I started talking to Alison and Brady and other members of Elon's family, she made it clear to them that she wanted to do this and that she wanted to tell her own story. And someone, I lost my dad 4 years ago. The last thing you want to do as a family member is bring a camera into that room. But Elon was adamant that she wanted to tell the story her way. And so she sort of tipped us off that it might be hard to bring a big camera crew into the Dakota unannounced. So we, led by our fearless producer, Rachel Greenwald, who's right over here, we put all of our camera equipment, light stands, everything in civilian luggage bags and put airline tags on them and glued them back together and showed up. And of course, when we came, the doorman said, "Oh, we'll bring these cases up." But they're like 200 pounds each. So we kind of like in this Ocean's 11 move, we're like, okay, sure. And the doorman brought 11 200-pound cases up to the thing. Never unzipped it, thank God. And that's how we got the cameras up there. And we had to wait a number of days. There were several days where she wasn't up for it. And we actually left the whole setup there, went back to Los Angeles, came back to New York, and patiently waited until one day she said, okay, come on, let's get it over with. And we did. And she gave an incredible testimony, as did Alison. And it's hard to believe, but it was just over 6 weeks ago that she's passed away. So this is all very fresh grief for her family, and kind of remarkable the timing of how it all is coming together in this swirl of both celebrating her life and grieving her untimely loss. But it was a heist that we were in cahoots on to get the story told, which we took as a great responsibility to make sure we did it well.
Thank you. And on behalf of
Thank you, Ben.
everybody here, thank you.
Yeah, they really deserve a huge round of
Very
applause.
much.
We love
All right, maybe Asia, we have a question for you, which you've been so agreeable to, but maybe I'll ask you Jane's question, because she's been asked it too many times. Maybe, what does it feel for you to say, I'm worth it? Does it have the same fight to you?
No, I mean, I'll never forget the first time, like when I first started working with L'Oreal, and I was shooting a commercial in New York. That was my first, my announcement that I'm working with them campaign, and I said the words for the first time, and everyone on the crew stopped and looked at me, and they're like, "Oh, is that your first time saying that?" And I was just like, "Oh my God!" And I don't know, it was this kind of beautiful lighting up of moment of like, wow, I'm a part of this magnificent family, truly. And I've said this often, but it was the makeup that my mother put on, and I used to stand in the bathroom behind her, watching her put on her lipstick and get ready to go out to the world. And for my mom, a Black woman working in an industry where there were very few other women that looked like her, if women at all, and tons of men, having that moment to herself in the morning to go out into the world, it was like putting on armor. There was something about it where once you have made yourself look the way you want to look, the way you want to present yourself to the world, there was a strength in that no one could take away from you. And so being in that dark studio in New York, saying those words, I'm worth it, it took me back to that moment of watching her and just thinking like, my God, like here I am. And it felt so remarkable and so special and so full circle, and like, because I never would have thought I would have had the opportunity to do something like that and be a part of a company this huge that has had such an impact on my life and on my mother's life, and to represent that and to be one of those faces looking back at people and saying, you are beautiful and you are deserving and you are worthy just for being who you are, just for breathing, just for existing. And yeah, and watching this video, I feel so empowered by it. Seeing this woman's story and everything that she was up against and how resilient she was and how she insisted on it being the way she saw it because she knew it was right. There's a morality to it in terms of that. She knew it was right, and a defiance to that I find remarkable, because I do think we get to a point where we say these words so often, we do forget how powerful they are, to have that kind of self-determination and know, yes, you are worthy. You are worthy. And you have to believe it. You have to live in that. You have to wake up in the morning and say that to yourself, that I am worthy and I am going to go out into the world and get everything that I deserve. Because I'm here, damn it, and I'm worthy.
If this whole acting thing doesn't work out, geez, something don't work for us. Amazing gift. Great, Shane Millington.
Let's follow that.
You're the Chief Creative Officer of McCann, New York, and probably the person here who can claim the legacy of Elon the most, because you're a woman creative and you've been in the same male-dominated meetings and rooms, and I was telling the story to people that maybe you don't want to hear, but you're the leader of our agency creatively, and still you face junior creatives who are men questioning your ideas and challenging, and part of that is our culture, but part of that is also the way men still behave around women. How did you react to the movie, and And what's your sense of Elon's legacy for women in the industry?
This film is beautiful. I found it to be so inspiring and so touching in a way that the fact that entering a room where you might be the only person and you have that truth, you know that truth inside of you, you know that you want to say something, you know that something's wrong, and speaking up in those moments is debilitating. And the fact that she did it and she kept going, and no one looked like her in those rooms, and not only did they not look like her, but they made fun of her. You know, they belittled her, and instead she kept going. And to me, as a female creative, a female leader, I have to remind myself of that all the time. And then as a leader, I have to know it's about support. It's always about supporting things that you don't understand. It's asking questions, it's about listening, and really, truly I hope that the people who work with me know that I always have their backs. And I don't think she had that. I know she didn't have that. And really understanding that when I see work from creatives, I'm hoping that they're gonna fly and not fail. And I vocalize that all the time. And as a leader, we need more of that, because we are in a moment of transition. We are in a moment of our industry kind of changing all the time. And a friend of mine told me, there's two ways to look at the future. It's with fear and with curiosity. And I would choose curiosity and creativity every single time.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I get to my last question for Delphine, I have a lucky strike question because we've got some time.
Okay.
We've got some pretty amazing people on the stage, some powerful leaders, and who happen to also be women. So Elon's fighting spirit. We talked a little bit about how maybe we still need to stick with Worth it for the next 50 years because there's still work to be done. Like, what more? I'm gonna ask the spokes as well as you. What more should L'Oreal Paris be doing in the world to make it natural and authentic and accepted that, of course, women are worth it? What more can we do?
It's good to say it. It's important to present role model as you have. Listening to Jane and Aja, you understand why we asked Jane 20 years ago with Charlotte here in the room to join us on the brand first. And the second is to have concrete action. I think that it's good to say it, but we are very much pushing for women in science, for women in cinema, in the Cannes Film Festival, presenting this documentary. You need to have concrete action, fighting against street harassment, explaining what is sexual harassment in the public spaces and in the workplace. You have also to put money on the table to make things change. And that's why also we want to grow the brand, because when we grow the brand, we have more money to do what we want to do.
I see what you did there.
No, that's true. We have nothing to ask or nothing to say to, I don't know, my bosses, etc. As soon as we drive the brand, we have money to do what we want to do. And we need money to do what we want to do.
Yes. Now,
One thing you could do is to help us pass the ERA.
yes.
The Equal Rights Amendment. We're practically the only country that doesn't have sexual, your sex and your gender is protected in the Constitution. France.
France has now.
We don't have it.
Yes.
Well, let's try that.
Well,
We have that in France now.
I know you do.
Since like 2 months. Yeah.
Okay, well, most countries have had it for a while.
Yeah.
So McCann could help with that. You want to take that on?
I'm taking it on.
I'll take it on.
We all heard
I'm
it.
taking it on. Do you agree to be part of it? Do you agree to be part of it? To be part of the campaign?
Part of it, I'll be part of it.
Oh. You called me cool earlier, so I think we're going to have to go on a date later. Asia?
Sorry.
You did something cool, the Worth It resume, right?
Oh, yes, which was really phenomenal. Delphine had this phenomenal idea that she was like, hey, and Charlotte, like all these lovely people over here, they're like, hey, let's talk about the ways in which you failed. And I was like, what? Huh? You wanna do what? And it was so great because it's like, yeah, you know, Instagram and TikTok, when it's not being funny, it's being very shiny and happy and perfect. And it can be unrealistic in terms of what it actually takes to go after your dreams. And it was, I was like, oh, okay, of course, I'll do anything Loreal wants. But then I had to like really sit with myself and think like, what can I share? And it was this really vulnerable thing to be like, oh wow, to talk about my failures and what that feels like. And I ended up like just writing up some stuff, and it hit me like one of the biggest first real failures in my life was I was a part of this honors program, and I just, wow, I'm feeling it even now saying it out loud. I couldn't cut it. I couldn't cut it, and it made me feel really stupid, and I felt ashamed of myself, and I had to drop out before I failed out, and it was so hard, and it felt so horrible at the time, and somehow in the midst of that just deprivation and self-doubt and self-pitying, something started to expand within me. Something opened up and was like, oh, you are no longer tied to this idea of yourself. And that opened up all these possibilities for what I could be. And that was like the first step of allowing myself to kind of branch out and figure out like, not like, oh, like what's the safe thing that I could pursue, but like, what's the thing that I'm actually passionate about? How do I want to spend my life, my time? And because if I'm not in this program, for me it was like, if I'm not in this program, I can't be a doctor, you know? And instead it became like, wow, if I'm not tied to this idea of myself that has been given to me, what else can I be? And having curiosity about it and exploring it. And I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sitting here today. I would have never allowed myself to go down this path of being an actor, which felt like an insane thing to try to become. Like, that was like, you're delusional, but it was like, well, hey, can't do this thing, so why not try? You know? And it was great to really remember those feelings, to remember what that felt like, and to share that, and to be like, hey guys, it's not all glossy. It hurts a lot. But that hurt taught me how to be resilient. And that resiliency taught me how to be in this industry. So it was great. So thank you for that.
Very great. I am going to give Duffy in the last word, just because you've heard these incredible stories in celebration, in honor of Elon, women at work, talking about, rather than talking about growth, being fighters forward. We have more of those stories lined up in L'Oreal Paris's history. Are you going to be making more brand films as we close the day for Tribeca X?
Yes, the idea is that to tell an authentic story and to explain what the deep meaning of our worset, I think that we have to go beyond advertising. That's why we are here also, to express how much heart and creation can help to tell story, and in an entertaining way, but at the same time in a very authentic way. So that's true that we are creating new, probably different object, creative object, piece of creation, IP, much more than probably advertising in the year to come.
More stories, and Ben, can we?
Yeah, more story, more movie.
Can we sign you up?
Whatever you need.
I'm doing the Jane Fonda thing. Jane's gonna help us also.
You mean asking me something on stage?
Yes. It's brilliant. Learn from the best. So we'll do that. We're going to make more brand films for L'Oreal Paris, and then we're also going to have a campaign to finally get the equal rights amendment passed.
Yeah.
All of this is going on to do.
I have to explain what I should do.
I didn't really.
I say to
I
Jane,
didn't
I share.
understand a word he said.
Well, just hear that we're going to do the ERA.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, is that what you said?
Yes. Thank you very much. So moving on, either who or Prime Prime Video sometime soon once we figure out the negotiation. Thank you to the panel. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you for joining us